Nicole Kidman has filed for divorce from Keith Urban after 19 years of marriage. The court papers show the actress will remain the primary caregiver of the couple's teenage daughters.
I'm really good, and I feel compelled to tell the story, or I'm really interested in the person who is.
After divorce, Nicole Kidman finally breaks silence on Keith Urban. The perfect illusion. For nearly 2 decades, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban seemed untouchable, a pairing that looked like proof love could withstand the unforgiving spotlight. To millions, they weren't just a couple. They were the story. The glamorous red carpets, the easy hand-holding, the interviews where devotion felt effortless. But illusions have weight. They require constant lifting, constant polishing, and constant performance. And in 2025, the shine slipped. Quietly at first, barely noticeable unless you knew where to look. Then, all at once, within days of a discreet move that shifted the center of their world, paperwork followed. And with it, truths that had long lived between carefully chosen smiles began to breathe. This wasn't a scandal screamed from headlines. It felt smaller, more intimate, like a promise breaking in a locked room. It was the end of a season for 2 people who had fought for each other longer than most ever do. The story they had held together by grit and grace was changing. The perfect illusion wasn't collapsing into drama. It was settling into reality. How the magic began. They met in 2005, in a room that celebrated their shared roots and staggering achievements. She had the poise of someone who had rebuilt herself piece by piece, choosing work and purpose to steady a heart still learning how to trust again. He had the charm and candor of a man who knew what it meant to stumble, to rise, and to try again. Opposites in public storylines, mirrors in private moments. It wasn't a rush, it was a pull. When the call finally came, it came with intention. The dates weren't fireworks so much as warmth. Quiet, certain, grown from the kind of conversations that turn into commitments. In 2006, vows were spoken under candlelight. Music stitched the moment together, and words like always felt less like hope and more like a plan. It was intimate and reverent, the kind of beginning that makes people believe. And for a while, belief was enough. But life, even the most beautiful, asks for more than vows. It asks for endurance, the first fracture. No story this lasting is untouched by struggle. Not long after their beginning, they faced the kind of challenge that demands honesty and humility. He sought help. She stood with him, not as a headline, not as a performance, but as a partner. In those months, love looked like patience. It looked like protecting each other's dignity. It looked like 2 people choosing to face what was hard instead of pretending it was easy. They welcomed children. They built a home layered with traditions, rituals, and a rhythm that seemed to hold. Publicly, gratitude flowed freely. Acceptance speeches, shared glances, the unspoken language of 2 people trying. Privately, life carried the complexities it carries for everyone. Schedules that didn't align, flights that stretched the distance, a career's momentum that can feel like both blessing and burden. None of this was simple, but they kept showing up. That's the part people forget. Sometimes love's bravest act is the choice to try again tomorrow. The marriage that became a performance. By the time a decade had passed, what the world saw remained beautiful. Synchronized smiles, easy banter, gestures that looked effortless. But you can only keep a perfect frame if the picture inside doesn't move. And life moves. One of them needed structure, rituals, a sense of home, anchors. The other found oxygen in motion, on the road, under stage lights, in the shift between cities when the world felt bright and loud. Neither desire is wrong, but they live in different time zones. They tried rules. They tried touchstones. They tried to keep the distance from turning into absence. Yet there's a quiet fatigue that creeps in when 2 good people are trying to hold a shape that no longer fits. The public moments, the red carpets, the interviews became a familiar choreography, hand on shoulder, lean in, whisper something light, smile. And yet, if you knew them, you might have noticed a pause where ease used to be, the faint rehearsal in gestures that used to be spontaneous. Not cruelty, not betrayal, just two lives drifting along currents they couldn't quite tame. The breaking point. Every story of endurance has a moment when silence becomes its own answer. By early 2024, those who loved them noticed subtle shifts, an uncertainty in tone, a softness that sounded like someone bracing for a change they didn't ask for. The work that had once been a source of identity and pride now created friction. Different cities, different hours, different needs. One person tried to hold the home fires, the other tried to make sense of what home meant when you live on a stage. There were no theatrics, no shouting matches in doorways, just a growing distance measured in missed dinners, unanswered calls, and weeks that blurred at the edges. Appearances became rare, then rarer. When they were seen together, the warmth was there, but thin, like an echo of something once very present. And then, a quiet choice, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that changes everything anyway. Spaces were created, decisions were made. A chapter's last page turned quietly, but decisively. The divorce that shook Hollywood. When the filing came, it wasn't messy, it was measured. The language was careful, respectful, pared down to the words that matter when a long story comes to an end. Irreconcilable differences. If it surprised the public, it didn't shock those closest to them. This wasn't a sudden storm. It was a season ending right on time, even if the heart wanted just one more summer. What defined the moment wasn't anger, it was clarity. The priorities were plainly drawn: stability, privacy, and the well-being of their children. No spectacle, no tug of war over what can't be measured in numbers. Their paths, long intertwined, were splitting with a kind of dignity that feels rare in a culture hungry for noise. There were whispers, of course. There always are. Speculation tried to fill the gaps. But the truth that mattered lived inside their decisions. Two people choosing peace over performance, even when it hurt. The truths she stopped hiding. In the weeks that followed, one truth rose above the rest. You can love someone and still accept that your paths no longer converge. She didn't rush to redefine the story. She didn't try to win a narrative. Instead, she allowed space for grief. The quiet, private kind that reshapes you without fanfare. Those who spoke carefully about her spoke of a tenderness still intact, and a heartbreak that didn't need an audience to be real. There were no exposés, no score-settling monologues. If frustration surfaced in art or on stage, that's where it stayed, inside the language artists use when the world they built changes shape. She focused on the only circle she could truly hold: her children, her work, her day-to-day rituals. The hardest realization wasn't the ending itself. It was understanding that the ending had been approaching for longer than she'd wanted to believe. That's not villainy. That's life insisting on honesty. After the storm. By late 2025, the headlines began to dim, as headlines do. She was seen in ordinary moments, walking, laughing softly with her daughters, letting silence be a balm instead of a burden. She wasn't trying to be anyone's symbol anymore, not the savior, not the stoic, just a person allowing herself to be unguarded in small ways. Friends described a shift from asking why to whispering what now, not as resignation, but as a choice to move with intention. She stayed where the routines are: school mornings, shared dinners, a home that keeps showing up, even on the hard days. The request at the heart of the paperwork reflected love, not leverage, a life built around presence, around what steadies children when everything else feels new. She could have spoken more. She didn't. She held back because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Not to hide, to protect. What remains? It's easy to romanticize beginnings and sensationalize endings. But the truest parts of this story live in the middle, in the years they held each other through adversity, in the comedy of schedules, in the determination to try again when trying was the only plan. They built nearly 20 years together. That doesn't evaporate. It transforms into respect, into gratitude, into lessons you can't learn any other way. What remains is not a perfect Hollywood ideal. It's something quieter and more useful, a reminder that love is not invalidated by its ending, and endurance doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes it means choosing the gentlest path forward, for yourself, for the person you once couldn't imagine living without, and for the family you'll always share. That choice is not defeat. It's discernment. The last word. Nicole once said, in different words, that life refuses to follow our scripts. You can plan endlessly and still be surprised. This chapter didn't close with fireworks. It closed with care, with adults making deliberate decisions instead of letting chaos decide for them. That's not a failure of love. It's a final act of it. Because love, in its most mature form, tells the truth about what is and blesses what was. So where does the story go from here? Forward, toward work that feels purposeful, toward mornings that aren't rushed by press cycles, toward a fierce, grounding kind of motherhood, toward art that carries echoes of a life lived wide open, and toward a peace that doesn't need an audience. Do you think she made the right choice by letting the story end on her terms? Share your thoughts below. If you'd like more thoughtful human stories from inside the industry, told with care and context, like this video, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next chapter.